Good afternoon to President Manuel, Provost Ganem, Dean Martine, Dean Miller, Dean Murphy, esteemed guests, and especially to all those who remind us who we are. Thank you for walking with us to this moment. There are many directions I could take in talking about my experience at DePaul. I could talk about my cohort and how energizing it is when there are days in the classroom when we just bring it. I could talk about meeting people from all over and how every one of them burns brightly in a different way. I could talk about how our afternoon walks casually take place in the greatest city. But underneath all of that is something simpler. In each of those moments, there's a half-second beat where I'm reminded that choosing this place felt right. And I can't tell you how thankful I am for that feeling because I actually didn't choose DePaul right away. I was already committed somewhere else. It seemed like a good choice. It made sense on paper. I visited. It was fine. But I can't say that it felt right. So the next week I was sitting at dinner with my mom who had visited that other campus with me. She could sense something was missing. She knew that for me, fine wasn't enough, which she's told me can be a gift, but in hindsight, probably made me a very exhausting teenager. And maybe as she was just about to let me go off into the world, she decided there was one more push I needed. So when that email from DePaul came through, she didn't overthink it for 1 second. She looked at me and said, "I think we need to go see Chicago this weekend." And that's exactly what we did. So in a span of mere hours, we were on a flight to Chicago. At this point, it was late spring, early May. So when we arrived in the city and were immediately slipping on patches of ice outside of our hotel, there was this moment where this girl from South Carolina felt a little betrayed, but also completely pulled in by what was different about this place. Because choosing Chicago in the middle of what, to me, felt like a polar vortex in May, felt like a level of commitment I hadn't felt with that other school. So thank you, Mom, for entertaining what was essentially our vague spiritual objection to another campus. Because in touring the theater school and walking through DePaul's campus, I realized I was surrounded by people who cared deeply, thought strangely, made things constantly, and talked to themselves on long walks. Suddenly, I felt less alone. It was that same night I decided I'd place my bets on Chicago. Looking back, choosing to trust that instinct was a defining moment in my life. It set the trajectory for my time here. In the random, everyday pursuits of a DePaul student, late-night perseverance turned epiphanies on the red line, hard conversations, moments where the stakes felt terrifyingly high, I kept returning to the feeling that I could trust myself. But since we're being real, let me just say, trusting yourself does not mean you always know what you're doing. I am a playwriting major, which means I've spent the past 4 years bringing in new pages that I knew would be read out loud and openly discussed among my peers and professors. These pages are often imperfect, unfinished, and deeply personal. I remember feeling totally out of my league. And I actually had this moment freshman year. I sat in Carlos's office trying to hold myself together as I told him I felt like a total imposter. I didn't feel like I belonged in that room. But it's something we laugh about now because looking back, not knowing exactly how to do this thing was sort of the point in coming here. And you know what? No one in that classroom was asking me to get it right the first time or to show up perfectly. They were asking me to keep coming back and keep bringing the pages in no matter the condition. The goal wasn't perfection, it was revision. Somewhere along the way, my feelings totally shifted. That thing that once terrified me is now something I rely on. I don't run from revision anymore. I trust it. And it turns out that's not just a writing skill. It's a way to move through this world. No one is walking into this next phase with a perfect first draft. We are all revising, constantly revising who we are, what we believe, what we think our lives might look like. The work that we do, whether it's in a theater, in an educational site, in a newsroom, or just in conversation, is rooted in something deeply human. We chase what feels honest and true. We try to understand people who aren't exactly like us. We care about people and their stories because they are real. And in a world that feels like it's moving faster by the day, shaped increasingly by technology, automation, and artificial intelligence, our pull towards what feels real matters deeply, because maybe what we carry with us is the ability to really see each other, to listen closely, and to tell the truth about what it means to be alive. It's why we do what we do. And as I was drafting this speech, I was thinking about what ties this group of graduates together, and I kept returning to this thought. The people in this room may be the people who will keep this world human. So that instinct to pursue something that feels real, even if it's a little uncertain, that's something I believe in. I believe in our ability to say yes, because saying yes brought us here. We consistently say yes to the creative risk, yes to our own vulnerability, yes to telling the truth, even when it's not easy. So while there are still many unknowns, I think we can take comfort in this. We trust ourselves to begin, we have learned how to keep going, and we've learned how to come back and revise. To the class of 2026, may we keep saying yes to the things that make us more honest, more alive, and maybe even a little strange. May we keep bringing the pages in, even when they're imperfect. And may we keep finding the people who remind us who we are. Congratulations.